Thanks for taking time to check out this video. It is a very long video. It is me working. It is an edited version of me working, and it is still long. So it raises questions over who would want to watch that. And I have concluded that for most people, they don't want to watch that. But if you're interested in certain things that I'm doing, you might want to check it out because you'll see how a professional software engineer would do it, and you get an idea about how much time it would take them, and you can also see what AI benefits AI is providing to them, or likewise not providing to them. I'm going to make more videos like this so that I can document how things are actually being used and whether or not AI is, in fact, taking the jobs of software developers or simply augmenting them. If you're a software engineer or perhaps a software engineer student, you might find this video valuable because I do go over things such as GitHub code spaces and developer containers, which are ways of creating an easy to use and reusable developer environment. So if you're not familiar with those, you absolutely should be, so that you can understand them and know what's out there. Otherwise, if you're more of an executive type, or you're just wanting to know, hey, what is the current state of AI, you don't really need to watch me go through things. In some cases, you might, if you feel like you understand things, but then at the same time don't understand them and want to see what it looks like. That makes a lot of sense. Otherwise, I would say go and check out another video I'm going to put out. And it is going to be much shorter, and it's going to jump straight to the conclusions and everything. Another thing you can do is just start watching this video, and then when you're ready, just kind of skip to the end. And I just talk about the conclusions about what we saw. Thanks. So I'm sort of doing an experiment. I want to see what's capable with AI right now. The reason for this is that I want to understand, as a software engineer, how much of my job is now switching over to AI and how much of it is still on me. So Heavy Resume uses a framework called ReactPy. And what ReactPy is that it's essentially a server-side way of rendering web applications. And it uses React, and it's React-like. And so you can kind of see on the right-hand side, this is how one might use it. It creates a simple web page that just says hello world in big words at the top. And you can basically combine these components, which are these right here, to go and create a complex web application. So the issue that I have with ReactPy is that I'm actually using a custom version of it for Heavy Resume. I essentially took a snapshot at a point in time and updated it to fit my needs. And one of those needs was being able to have the client basically go, hey, server, here's what I was looking at last time I saw you. Please render everything using this data. So unlike the official React.js implementation, which was naive and had a security concern because they didn't check what the actual payload was, there is no security concern here because everything is actually signed and all that, and so the user can't really tamper with it. So what I would want to do is update ReactPy so that it has this same feature. And I have a bunch of other bugs that I've come across, and I don't know if they're fixed or not. And part of that is because I'm using old code. So to start with, understanding, hey, what can AI do that I can't do? I kind of have writer's block right off the bat, trying to figure out how to slice this off for an AI agent. And the challenge is that I know very well that I can't just say, read my mind. So I need to be able to articulate what the problem is and how they would solve it, how I would solve it, or how I would delegate this to someone else to solve it. So AI is not going to help with that because it's all in here. It doesn't know what I want. I actually have several changes that I made. And part of going through this is going to be one by one remembering what all those changes are, because it's just been so long since I've touched it. And right off the bat, I'm reminded that I did do a little change here, which seems to pull in a change to how the body renders. I guess ReactPy might have been missing an option to just have it render with no script. No script is often used by search engines and things that don't want to render it. So it's usually important to have something about your website in there, even though most users won't see it. The other change is I seem to have a custom configure with a custom object called a state recovery manager. And so this configure, I think, is, if I remember correctly, a helper for getting ReactPy installed on the framework that you're using. In this case, Heavy Resume uses a framework called Sonic, which is named after the comical Sonic character, and then they sort of changed the logo and stuff. But it is an asynchronous framework. It's supposed to be fast. That's why I chose it. And this happened to support it, so that sort of worked out. So it looks like I must have changed this function, because this is the only thing that uses the state recovery manager. So I'm going to have to dig in and see like the extent of where this goes. So if we follow along, it looks like our state recovery manager gets passed into this WebSocket server object, which in turn gets added to, well, it. And then it looks like when we have a layout, if the state recovery manager exists, then it looks like it has a specialty set recovery serializer. And if we go to that, it looks like that gets used to create layout updates, serialize the state variables, which means to turn them into text for sending over the network. Where else does that go? Is that it? Looks like that's it. So, oh, I see. So no, that's sending it. I think there's a place where it recovers from it, but this is not it. So I will have to hunt that down. Now I could be searching for where the change happens that causes it to automatically resync things, but one other place I can look is by simply going to the type and simply looking for the function where that happens. So here we have serialized state variables, so we know that's an outgoing function. So now we want, let's see, deserialized client state must be the incoming function. So where does that get called? And the answer is apparently nowhere important, which means it must be happening on the ReactPy side, or the custom ReactPy side. So this is something where I could see AI getting confused, and that is because we couldn't find where it's being called, because VS Code was trying to be helpful and screening out all the files that were part of the library. But in this case, we're already inside the library and wanted to continue to follow the library code and needed to get rid of that. Now that we are actually in the correct file, we can see here it is called deserialized client state, which comes from this do state rebuild for reconnection. This is all my custom code, which comes in from this handshake, which may be the point where it stops being custom. So in this case, we can kind of get an idea about how this is structured. You have a WebSocket server, it takes on a state recovery manager. When it does the handshake with the client, it checks to see if the client is reconnecting. If the client is reconnecting, then it ends up saying, okay, well, give me your data and I will rebuild using that data. It could fail, in which case I believe it restarts and all that. So it's a bit complicated. And we can demo the reconnection logic here just to see what is this very specific feature. So here's something that I left open. It has disconnected. It is no longer connected to the server. I want to now reactivate this connection. So I'm just going to move my mouse in here and you're going to see this. And it is now connecting. And so everything is restored back to the state it was. And so now when I go and press a button like here, it still works. To try out AI for the first time, it might make a lot of sense to start with something simple. So let's revisit our no-script body and see if maybe we can make this a first-class feature of ReactPy if it's not already. So first off, it looks like that we just have a place that is sort of hard-coded that says there is a document here and you will read that text. It then has a monkey patch logic to take the original function, process it with these options, and then replace the result by taking the body element and inserting a no script element right at the top. So in other words, let's say you have this, it's going to go and then add this little bit on top, which is where that no script body comes from. And we can search for it right here and see that it's just simply HTML. If we go look at our original function from ReactPy, we can see that it has its own index.html. It reads the text and then it formats it using this. So it doesn't seem very hard to say, hey, let's go and add something to this that allows for a no script body. In fact, it could probably be part of the options. But I think to start, I'm not going to tell the AI that. I'm not going to be holding its hand at first. I want to see what it comes up with. So I'm going to tell it that I just want to be able to add a no script option and see where that goes. All right, so I have a OpenAI Plus or whatever it's called subscription. So I can use something called Codex, which is their product. I don't have Codex proper on my machine. I'm using a code space in using Visual Studio Code to pull from that code space. A code space is a remote server, essentially. So I can install their extension, and that will allow me to use Codex to do agent work. I do not see the extension showing up, though, so that I can configure it. I might have to reopen the window, which means I need to pause the video. I have reopened the window, and I still don't see the extension. I've used this extension before. I know it shows up here. I don't see it here. This is like one of the dumb things that developers waste their time on. Okay, right after I stopped the video, I see where they stuck it. It's over in this corner now. Right, so I need to sign in. I'm going to pause so I can sign in. And that took like 1 minute, if even. All right, so Codex in your IDE. Hand off Codex in the cloud. Turn to-dos into Codex tasks. Decide the autonomy. So this is probably the future of white-collar work. Even though I'm a developer doing this, you could definitely see this moving on to other things. I have this task. Please go do this task. And it's going to integrate with something and whatnot. If it can be converted into text, an LLM can manipulate it. And even if it can't get converted to text, you can still find ways to manipulate it. All right, so I'm going to try not to hold its hand. Let's see here. All right, so I'm being a combo of intentionally ambiguous while trying to also at least give it a little enough to move it forward. Add an option to provide a path to a static web page so that web search indexers and link previewers can see the page. That is what NoScript is used for. So let's see if that figures that out, figures out where to add it in the library, and hopefully it gets it working on first try. All right. So it looks like it tried to run a command and it failed. So now it's using something that's always installed. Okay, so right now it is possibly going off on a tangent. It says that it's trying to do it for bots. So I know it's supposed to be doing no script. No script just works. But here it almost seems to be focusing in and taking it a bit too literally. But maybe it'll find its way back. It's also worth calling out, I didn't check the most recent version of the code to see if something like this doesn't already exist. That might confuse it. So now it's talking about indexers, which is very, yeah, that's taking what I'm talking about very literally. Already I'm a little disappointed. All right, so now it's running commands. So now it's trying to, I guess, install it and run tests. Yeah, this is a code space. It's clean. There's no, so it can do whatever it wants. I don't have to worry about it messing up my computer. Yeah, so it didn't get far enough to actually run the tests. But let's just look at the changes here, because remember my changes were about 8 lines of code to do the monkey patch. Py script. Okay, so I guess this one of the advantages of moving to this newer version of ReactPy is that it has client-side rendering on it. Mine doesn't. It kind of does in the sense of that I've put some stuff in there using Python, but this one uses PyScript, which I don't think is as fast as Python. Okay, so here, build HTML response metadata. Okay, so then it must have created something new. So now it's literally looking for an indexer. Indexer static page. Yeah. So at this point, I would go, no, this is the wrong solution to the problem. This is very, yeah. This isn't what I want. So I'm going to go ahead and pause it and reset things. So if you look at what has changed, it turns out quite a bit. This logic that I changed with these common options, they're now gone, and they're no longer part of ReactPy. So it's now done differently. So if we go back to our ReactPy window, it looks like this render index HTML replaced that function. And as you can see, I guess it uses parent to pull in values, and parent is a ReactPy object. For some reason, the Python things aren't working, probably because they're not set up. But let's see if we can get Codex to do this better. So I'm going to give a better prompt this time. So first we're going to, let's clear this out. And let's ask it, please update the index.html renderer so that one can provide a no script section. That's it. That's what I'm going to tell it. Let's see what it does. So it seems to have found the correct spot. It needs to now work backwards and say, okay, how do I get that no script into this spot? And it found HTML head. Okay, so now we have HTML no script. That looks better. All right, so then that's where it would go. It looks like it has its own function. It's adding tests. I'm not sure that the no script actually makes sense in the context of the PyScript stuff. I'm not familiar with it. It only makes sense when it's rendering the whole document. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense if it's like a subcomponent of a larger document. And I think PyScript might be a subcomponent. But, oh, actually, maybe not. That is not a very useful test. That might be a useful test. Okay, so it takes a VDOM dict. So the main thing here is I want it to be a file because it's kind of a pain in the butt to do it some other way. You can just have an HTML file and it just, sticks it in there. So let's try that. Another thing is that you want to make sure that it's cached and done exactly one time, because you don't want to do that every time there's a request. That might already be the case. But I'd be concerned if it happened in here. So now this takes the path and if not index HTML. So it looks like index.html gets cached. So that actually should be fine. Okay, so now it takes a path. All right. Okay. right, it seems okay. I guess the next question is, how do I test this properly? All right, so we can't run our tests. Let's go see if we can get the AI to figure it out. Pretty sure I've encountered this issue before, and the fix to it is... Hang on. So it's got to go get the key. And if you look it up online, there's like someone who gives you a command that you can paste in. That's how a human would fix this. That feels a little dangerous. Like, hey, can I look at your keys? I mean, this is running on an open source repo, so I don't care so much. I don't think there's any personal keys hiding in there. There shouldn't be, because I think it's for yarn. It really shouldn't be doing inspections, though. I mean, the way the AI should be going is that, hey, I know how to find the key. I'm going to run a command that idempotently adds the key. Idempotent means that if it runs multiple times, it doesn't do any damage. So, yes. Yes. Then I'm not supposed to use .py. And oh wait, no, you can run test files. It's wrong. The AI is wrong. It says you can't do that, but it clearly says you can right here. So now let's see if it fixed it. That looks better. So now let's make a dev container configuration. So that way we don't need to repeat this for every developer that gets on this repo. All right, but our tests don't seem to have gone any further. So maybe this instruction is wrong and the AI was correct. I think it would be this. And it looks like we're running tests. So I came back to my project after closing it down and discovered that the code space was no longer working. Apparently those dev container changes had confused GitHub code spaces and resulted in it getting into a broken and unrecoverable state, even if you put things back and pretended you didn't make the change and just shut things down and started them back up again. So that resulted in me having to work through the dev container changes, and I ended up moving those to their own Git branch, and it spent maybe over an hour easily to make these changes and get the dev container working. So I would not have trusted AI for that. I think AI was good for answering some questions, but some of the problems was, for example, on this dev container configuration, which, that's right, I checked out onto the branch that doesn't have it anymore. But basically, it was a little ambitious with making some of its changes, and that is what broke it. And the other issue was a bit of the dependencies for this repository were incorrectly stated as being for Python 3.9, and actually the real minimum version is 3.11. So once that was resolved and a few other things happening, like this stupid public key issue, which I hate seeing, that seems to have cleared things up, and I'm able to run the server. So now the next check that I want to do is to make sure that my static file, my change, which I now need to remember where I put that, where we show no script. Let's search for that. I want to give it a sane default, essentially. So here is where we use it. And we can jump to this. And so here, no script path to HTML. I think the issue is that the AI took things a bit too literally, and I said I want it to be a path. But I should also have a default, I think. So path is going to be empty. If path doesn't exist, then we're going to say default text equals please enable JavaScript to view this site. And then here's our, there. So that looks a bit better. I don't need to change any other code because if the path is not given, which it's not, it's just going to switch to using this. So now when I go and test it, which I guess I need to change what window I'm looking at. Okay, so here's our little test page. It says hello ReactPy, server is working. If I disable JavaScript in the debugger and refresh the page, I should expect to see that message, but I actually don't see anything. Hang on a second here. Why is it not in here? Standalone site packages? Oh. Okay, so what's happening is that it's not even running it it installed it, and so now it's running off of a copy. It's not using the code that I changed. So when we fixed it, changed it, we're not seeing the changes because this is still the old stuff that probably was installed a while ago. It shouldn't be doing this, so it's another dev container issue. All right, so after cleaning that up, I'm able to run this. I had to change a few things. I had to go change the configuration. Um, I just noticed they made this not under Git. So that's obnoxious. That should be under Git, so everyone can benefit from it. All right, so git ignore file dot code. Yeah, so that's the wrong approach. VS Code, if it's inside the workspace, is intended to be shared. There's a special space for stuff that is user settings, which won't even show up there. So most likely they're not VS Code users, and they didn't realize that. Okay. So if we go switch over to our thing, our window, we can see that we now have our please enable JavaScript default. So that's good. The last test we need to have is that we have a file that we want to show instead. So this is what it came up with. That's not bad. And of course, we can refresh it with JavaScript, and we should see the hello world. Once I clear these breakpoints, there it is. And then we disable it, refresh again. That works. That looks good. So what did we learn about using the latest and greatest with AI? Well, we found that it did a decent job finding things to change and made changes across multiple files. We found that it could quickly write foundations and code that could be used as a template, and it was able to provide quick answers when it was asked questions. But it did also fall short in some areas. So, for example, it doesn't seem like that it has very good intuition, and it generally doesn't ask clarifying questions. So it makes decisions with a bit of tunnel vision. It's at the mercy of the environment it's in as well. If the code base is ambiguous or has confusing things in it, the AI is going to fall for them just like a human would. Additionally, knowing how to set up the environment kind of requires knowing what everything is used for and why it's done that way, which is something that AI probably doesn't know. Finally, it seems like giving instructions, you really should be technical. If you're not, you're going to find it quickly writing the wrong thing. So that brings up the last question, is AI taking your job? Well, because it requires quality, unambiguous instructions, it actually kind of requires that you already know how to do this stuff. And if you don't, then you're at some point going to get stuck. It's not a human, so it can't guess intent as well as a human. So it does get instructions from a human. There are things you and I understand because we live life as normal, and AI, it experienced life through a much different way than we did, and so it's not going to guess about things as well as we do. I would say that if your job was to take very well written instructions and then convert them to code, and then someone else made sure that it wasn't bad, then yeah, your job is definitely being taken by AI. And I will say that I've heard about such sort of loops when you talk about offshoring teams and such. So I could see that potentially obsoleting offshore teams. Now, what surprised me is that when I looked at the results that I was writing down, I realized that the words I was using basically described my opinion of AI a year ago. So even AI has gotten better, it seems like the use cases and your ability to be hands off are still limited. That makes me think that if you were to look at this and say that, okay, AI advances is likely following an S curve, then we are starting to approach the top of it, which suggests that things are going to slow down a lot more. In other words, you're going to have to start targeting things use case by use case, and it's just going to get exponentially harder to get things working great to the point where a human can be hands off. It's worth calling out that we're using the AI to make very specific changes to a project, and we're not using the AI to do what's called greenfield development, which is where you actually have it build something from scratch. Based off of what I've heard, it seems like AI is probably a lot better at greenfield because it has a lot less restrictions on what things are, and it can produce code in a way that it knows how to consume and build off of. So we'll see how that performs in a future video. On the next video, what we're going to do is I'm going to have it actually try to do the merge of the remaining changes from my code to the original code base. And it's going to be a very challenging merge, even if you're a human, because the code bases have changed dramatically. So getting those features in and being able to thoroughly merge them is going to be hard.